I'm John LeBlanc. I've been attending Freedom Fellowship, I think, round about 2.5 to 3 years at this point. I was brought here by a guy who's unfortunately passed since then, but Dale Thompson, old coworker of mine that we were in Bible study together. So before coming to Jesus fully, I'd already been brought back to my faith, but I was working at a construction company in San Antonio, having graduated from college and gone there. I was relying on myself very heavily, and as we all know, when you're relying on yourself, you're always going to make mistakes and fail. And while things were going well and I was progressing effectively, that was adequate and it was fine. I could stay positive and focused on that. Whenever I'd make mistakes, which is inevitably going to happen, it would that negativity would kind of hit me real hard, and I'd spiral. So, I mean, my roommates and close friends at the time didn't tell me then, but they've told me since that it was real heavy being around me at that point. Even if something went well with work or I made some big progress from some bonus or something like that, I'd find something else to latch onto that was kind of a negative thing that would kind of just make it heavy. It was a spot where I'd very frequently, well, almost daily, turn to substances at the end of the day to try to run away from myself. I don't know who among you has tried to run away from yourself, but you never really can. So that was something I was struggling with real heavily at that point in time. And while I was able to be functional, and that was why I was able to convince myself it was okay for so long. I did well at work. I'd come home and take care of whatever chores or housework needed to be done. But once I'd get to the end of the day where, just kind of sit down on the couch and start unwinding, I couldn't sit with myself and had to turn to other things to get away from it all. Or the main one that was the focus then was like paying off debts, student debts, things like that, making progress towards the things I was driving towards. And the main one was numeric, like numbers. I'm a nerd. I like numbers. I'm good with numbers. Math's always been my strong suit. So that was kind of the main one. But frequently it'd be, as an instance, I'd be trying to pay down debts and the goal was to pay it off as quickly as possible. And then I'd be very close to paying off the debts and suddenly car issues. And so I spend a couple $1,000s trying to take care of cars, and now I feel like I'm back in the hole that I've been digging out of for 6 months. I mean, probably security is the big one, and it certainly made it where all this hard work is pointless. I think Ecclesiastes talks about meaningless, everything is meaningless, like that sort of thing. When I'd have those setbacks, it's like, well, I've been working this hard, I've been making all these sacrifices, and now it's still falling apart. What's the point? And that's kind of the place the spiral would start, and then I'd start looking to other areas of my life where it's like, I try so hard, I'm so good to people, they still don't, have that connection, I still can't find a girl, that sort of stuff, and it just kind of spirals from there. I'd say it's probably romantic love was the thing that, it wasn't the thing that, necessarily led me, but it was the thing I thought would save me, effectively. I think my intelligence was the thing I probably, was led by the most, since I was single for most of that time, but, the thing I thought would save me and give life the meaning I thought it was lacking that was making it so hard, and where realistically, I wasn't suicidal, but I was not attached to my mortal well-being either. So I would say it's probably romantic love was the one I was attached to. There's kind of a couple of phases to it. It started initially with the realization that if there's consistently these issues that are happening that are not necessarily in my control, you can't control when a car goes wrong, or in a soccer game, you get your ankle sprained from somebody kicking through your foot or something like that. But it's, if I'm consistently having these struggles and these spirals, I'm trying to run away from myself. Well, the only person that can really be blamed for a consistent problem like that is myself. So I initially started with a self-mentorship sort of journey. I listened to some Jordan Peterson stuff, and he was really huge for taking responsibility for your life and things like that. But the faith side of it wasn't meant to be a faith thing initially, but I realized I was kind of plateauing with that self-growth on my own. And I realized, if you're objectively looking for the best person that's probably ever lived, I don't think you're going to find a better human being than Jesus. So I kind of started to look into the Bible. I was raised Catholic, so I knew a fair amount about him. And then I had some coworkers at that construction company I was at that were starting a Bible study. And they said, look, we don't really care where you're at with your faith side of things. You may be the D&D nerd. We don't care. You can contribute something. Just come into the Bible study and start talking with us and see what happens. And so I joined that Bible study, and it was through that Bible study that I met Dale Thompson, who was a member of this church at the time. After being in the Bible study for, I think it was roughly 6 months, I was like, you know what? People at church previously had pushed me from the church, but I'm in a different place now. Now I want a place to get away from the noise of the world and just have time with God. So I want to start exploring churches and see what happens. I looked at a few different churches online for viewing YouTube services and stuff like that. Freedom Fellowship being among them, and then we found out that Dale had prostate cancer and didn't have much time left. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go try his, see what happens. Came here, and I still remember the first sermon. I believe it was Dennis giving it. Was talking about what wisdom from a Christian perspective means, and every point he was hitting on, it was like, well, that sounds like Dale. And that one sounds like Dale too, and got through the whole service and went up to tell Dale, it's like, every point he was talking about, I was just thinking, that sounds like Dale. And he said, funny enough, every point he was talking about, I was thinking, that sounds like John. And so I decided at that point, I was like, at the very least, I'm gonna stay at Freedom Fellowship for as long as Dale's still around. And then by the time he unfortunately passed, I had brought a couple of their friends that, Jordan and I don't think Alex was here yet, but Jordan, who had moved to Austin, so it's kind of a nice central location as the San Antonian, for us to come to, and decided, I'm gonna stay here. This is my home now. That sermon itself, that wisdom sermon, was the one that was like, I'm meant to be here. By that point, I'd already come to faith was no longer about how do I make myself better. It was a connection there that I was raised Catholic, like I said. My sister had told me at one point, while I was actively doing a construction project to repair a church, she called me and kind of lectured me for like 40 minutes about how last time I saw you happy was at church. So that didn't really ring true, but the impression that she and my parents always had was like, they gave you is come into Christ and faith makes life wonderful. And it's like, that's not really my experience. I won't say that suddenly you don't have hardships when you're in faith, but the thing that faith does do is it allows you to carry through those things with ease. Like, it makes life easier, if not, like, it's still hard, but you can carry it easier. And I think that's kind of one of the big ones that really changed, was suddenly I'm not carrying this alone. Suddenly, I believe, I don't know if it's a verse or just something people pull from it a lot, but there's no bad God can't make work for good. That sort of thing. And that's really where it changed. I don't have a hard moment as far as coming to know Jesus properly. But that would be, I'd say, the big change is, with God with you, there's no burden you can't carry. There's no storm he can't get you through. And the trust and faith in that is really what makes life completely different. I was in soccer and a runner for a long time. When you do that sort of thing, if I could see the finish line, I'm going to finish that run any day. It's when you're running the track and you make a turn on a trail or something, you don't see the finish line. It's just another turn that you kind of have that hardship of like, can I keep going? Well, with God, it's like, you always know, no matter how long the storm's going, how dark it seems, he will get you through it. And it might not look like you expected it or wanted it to, but if it doesn't, it'll be better than you could have ever imagined. In the realization that I'm never going to be perfect, you can't ever be perfect, the only one to ever live a perfect life was Jesus. It's like, if I find a romantic partner and I have that, it's not like all my problems go away either. They've got their own problems, and now realistically you've got two people, that's double the problems, right? There's constantly going to be conflict there. It's constantly going to have that sort of thing. Whereas God's, even if he's got, you get tried as one of God's warriors all the time, like that's something it talks about. He's got answers and he's got solutions, and he's something that is always reliable and you can always lean on. That once again, there's no bad he can't make work for good. So I think that's a really big one that will kind of get you through it. And any of those hardships, when I don't know if women get it as well, but all guys get the like, oh, you fall down, you rub your, hurt your elbow. It's like, oh yeah, don't worry, it builds character. The only father you're ever going to know that every time he says that, he's right every time, is God. There's nothing, I don't believe there's any hardship he'll put you through that doesn't have a purpose in his plan. Focus in life at this point is how to go be there for people. I feel like that's a sort of a calling that's been revealed to me during this journey is, when I go support people, where for a lot of people over time it kind of drains them, like for me, I feel like almost that it's revitalizing me. It's the thing that I was brought here for, was to go support people in their times of hardship. So that's something that's really changed in that regard. Beyond that, I mean, Sundays are now a time for God and worship. I come here to church every Sunday. I then have fellowship after church. I tend to listen to another sermon from one of the other Bible study people's church. Afterwards, I'm in the Word pretty regularly, doing studies in that regard. So a lot of my free time, like driving to work and from work, is filled with prayer and time with God, in a way that, especially if you start with gratitude and you focus on that, allows you to be reminded of the good in your life. And when you spend 10 minutes thinking of like all the individual things that you're grateful for, suddenly you get to your list of like, oh man, work was hard this week, and it's like comparatively it just doesn't seem that heavy. So that's one of the really big ones. Beyond that, once again, the focus that like there's a reason for this. God's using me for other things. You see hardship with others, and it's like, well, here's an opportunity for me to share that light that God's put into my heart with others, and hopefully help them to find their way to the same sort of uplifting faith that God's blessed me with.